States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Convene the Commissioners' meeting at this time and ask for approval of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say aye. Aye, so carried. Public comment on agenda items only. Hearing none, we'll move on.
So at 2.0, we're going to start with 2.1. Wendy Hastings is here. You're presenting County Emergency Medical Services Awards today.
Morning, Wendy.
Good morning. I want to thank the commissioners for allowing us to come and present our county awards here. As you know, we were not able to have our annual banquet where we usually present these awards, so this is a great opportunity. So we're going to start out with the EMT of the Year. This year's Lycoming County EMT of the Year is an active member with the Old Lycoming Township Volunteer Fire Company and actively responds to both 911 calls and routine transfers, where she not only is responsible for maintaining inventory of EMS supplies and apparatus. Not only has she been active with EMS, she's also an active fire police officer responding to fire and rescue incidents, controlling traffic, protecting all personnel and apparatus. She currently serves as the secretary of the Lycoming County EMS Council, as well as the Old Lycoming Township Firemen's Relief Association, and serves on the Susquehanna Regional EMS Operations Committee. Her caring, dedication, and compassion are what make her stand out as an EMS provider, and we're pleased to present our EMT of the Year award to Suzanne Dively-Smith. Congratulations. The Lycoming County Paramedic of the Year is presented to Josh Dorman, a paramedic with Susquehanna Regional EMS. Josh is no stranger to emergency services, where he's followed in both his parents' footsteps. Josh is currently the volunteer ambulance captain of the Hughesville Fire Company, where he also serves as the carnival chairman, secretary of the fire department, and also serves as a mentor for those entering EMS. He serves as an EMS instructor for the Harrisburg Area Community College, as well as the American Heart Association, instructing CPR and ACLS, further imparting his knowledge to a new generation of EMS providers. Josh's nominator recognized that he really doesn't enjoy being in the spotlight, but also acknowledges that there is no one more sincere and dedicated to their career or community, and we would have to agree. So, Josh? This year's 911 Telecommunicator of the Year is presented to Dustin Williams, a valuable member of the 911 team and community. Dustin is always willing to assist when needed to help cover shifts, train new telecommunicators, and whatever else the department needs. Dustin is the evening shift supervisor, as well as the tactical dispatcher and the state police clean administrator for Lycoming County. Dustin was instrumental in designing and implementing a new schedule to best utilize staff. Dustin always provides a welcoming atmosphere in a team environment, assisting both new and senior telecommunicators. Dustin wasn't able to be here. He agreed to cover a midnight shift last night in addition to his regular hours, further driving home the reason for this award. Accepting on his behalf is Public Safety Director Jeff Hutchins. Looking around, our EMR of the year was involved in a search and rescue, so she may be a little late. So,
Yeah, for the time being.
okay. The highest esteemed award that's presented in our EMS region is the Klein A. Dwyer Memorial Lifetime Achievement Award. It's presented annually to an individual whose contributions to emergency medical services have positively influenced patient care and service to others, as Klein did before he was unexpectedly taken from us on December 17, 2007. John Major began his medical career in 1969 as a corpsman in the U.S. Navy. Honorably discharged, he worked as a physician assistant for local physicians in the operating room and labor and delivery for several years before opening his company, Paramedics Incorporated in Williamsport. Paramedics initially provided insurance physicals and hearing tests and grew exponentially to provide EMS medical supplies, emergency vehicle rescue equipment, sales, and ambulance billing. John began teaching in the 1970s, which quickly became a lifetime passion. He's credited by notable national figures such as Steve Worth and Doug Wolfberg as having an early influence on their careers. He taught EMT, CPR, first aid, infection control, vehicle rescue, and many other courses and classes over his 40-year career, and instructing for Bucks County Community College, Harrisburg Area Community College, and Penn College. He was always willing to provide extra help practice sessions to assure the success of his students. John volunteered with the American Legion Post 617 ambulance in South Williamsport as an EMT, and also volunteered 40-plus years to Montgomery Volunteer Fire Company, where he is an active life member. John has served as an EMT, rescue technician, ambulance captain, secretary, junior advisor, and treasurer for Montgomery Volunteer Fire Company, as well as serving on the LTS EMS strike team. In 1978, John started EMTS Incorporated in Williamsport and operated until 1986, when he changed the business name to EMTS Corp. And relocated it to Lewisburg, Union County. While primarily a transport service, EMTS for a period of time also provided 911 service for much of the area, serving primarily Union and Snyder counties, until the end of 2019, when he retired after suffering a stroke. Anecdotally, in the 1980s, a father approached John to buy a gift for his high school-age son who loved EMS and who had taken an EMT course and planned to attend paramedic school. Upon hearing this, John hired this young man to work with him, traveling and demonstrating ambulances and AMCUS rescue systems and attending conferences prior to his paramedic training. This teen was Klein Dwyer, which brings full circle the principles and dedication that both of these men lived and gave for the calling that they loved. John has served on the Lycoming County EMS Council for over 30 years, represented Montgomery Volunteer Fire Department, as well as for a time as Muncie Township Ambulance. He's had a passion for volunteer recruitment, retention, and reimbursement, chairing the council's ad hoc committee and advocating for equitable compensation for EMS statewide. John later felt a calling to serve as the Union County Deputy Coroner. He served in that role from 2015 until his stroke in 2019. In that role, he helped survivors find comfort and closure by determining the cause and manner of death of their loved ones. Many examples hold testament to John's dedication. John Hoover, who's here today, an EMT from Sullivan County, visited John after his stroke and shared with the Major family how much John's instruction meant to him and how it has influenced his care and service today. Steve Worth and Doug Wolfberg flew up from Florida to visit John after his stroke to present him with a card and a visit. Doug and Steve frequently mention John in their national seminars. A further testament to his caring nature, John continued to show his compassion and care for others by putting a homeless man in a hotel during cold weather, buying Christmas gifts for several families over the years who found themselves in a situation unable to provide for their children, and helping with the Christmas basket delivery on Christmas Eve each year with the Montgomery Volunteer Fire Company. John always said that he would pray each day for God to put someone in his path that day that needed help. A local emergency service veteran recently said it best, John's life work will never be done. It will live on in the providers he trained and mentored, and those they train and mentor in the future. It's my esteemed honor to present the 2020 Klein A. Dwyer Memorial Lifetime Achievement Award to John Major.
you, County Commissioners, Lycoming County EMS Commission. My name is Mark Major. I am the youngest of my father's 4 boys. And, Wendy had mentioned several times since my father's stroke in March. Obviously, anybody in the EMS community knows that can certainly have a lot of impacts on a person's life. Although Dad's recovery is continuing to progress each and every day, there was a little bit of anxiety coming here today and providing some remarks. So what we did is, anybody who knows my father over the years knows he's a man that is not short on words. All of us have kind of inherited that over the years, but it's literally one paragraph that I was asked to read on his behalf. The Klein A. Dwyer Award is very special to all who knew Klein and what he represented and accomplished. The award in Klein's name is extremely meaningful to my father. As Wendy noted, few probably know how Klein and my dad were introduced by Klein's father, Fred. Fred stopped in to buy a stethoscope at my dad's store. Fred spoke of his son's interest in EMS and activity with the Hughesville Volunteer Fire Company. Klein would soon work for my father until he attended paramedic school. During that time, he also traveled with my father, showing demonstrator ambulances and hydraulic rescue tools across the state. They had many stories and developed a lifelong friendship. A few years later, Klein would instruct my brother JJ's AMT and paramedic classes. Klein then taught my brother Michael in various EMS fire and rescue courses. Klein and JJ eventually worked together as platoon chiefs, and JJ was with Klein when he died at work in the line of duty. Suffice it to say, Klein Dwyer shared many good years of friendship with my father and brothers. This award is personally very special to my father and to the Major family. On behalf of my father, he would like to thank everyone past and present for having a part in his service to others throughout emergency medical services. He cannot begin to express how much it means and how much he appreciates the recognition today. Thank you.
We have one last award, and I see that she's here. Our EMR of the Year has been continuously certified as an emergency medical responder for over 19 years. As a lead forest ranger with the Department of Conservation and National Resources, she has shown initiative in coordinating the naloxone program for the Tyodotin State Forest and recognizes that airway control is an important treatment modality in the treatment of overdose, incorporating the use of bag valve ventilation with the CPR training for fellow rangers. When DCNR no longer required EMR certification for its rangers, she always saw the value in maintaining her certifications when others simply maintain the minimum first aid and CPR. She is extremely committed to public safety, and we are proud to present this award to Stacey Duffield. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. This is a group that I love to celebrate because they're worth celebrating. These individuals are the backbone of our community. They are the most selfless people. They have no personal lives. They drop their hat at the call of human mankind. When that alarm goes off, no matter what they're doing, they're out the door. I live across the street from one. And Hutch, I see it zipping out all the time. And thank God, when I had an accident where I fell and broke my back, fractured a finger, broke a rib, and as I was laying there, and it seemed like an eternity. When you need 911, it seems like an eternity. It does. And when you see that face, and I was just joking around with Hutch, I said this a few weeks ago, it was 5 years ago, and the first face I saw was Hutch. It was like, thank God, help's here. And I get choked up because you folks give so much of your own lives and your families, what they give up, the sacrifices, so that you can help us in the case of emergencies. And through this COVID crisis, it's been even more stressful and more trying for each one of you. So we don't have words to thank you. There's just not enough words. And you are the backbone of our county. I'm so proud. We went to a training for EMS, and to see the professionalism through that training And if we're faced with any kind of crisis, no matter what it is, we have the best of the best. And that every resident in this county should be reassured of that. And we're going to, as a Board of Commissioners, will always support you. We'll do what we can do. The Commissioners on the CCAP board for EMS and trying to get more funding and the volunteer organizations, and we'll continue to fight for you. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Yeah, you know, I've told this story before, but to reiterate what Scott was saying, when you see the face of the EMT or workers or paramedics come to your door, they're your heroes, and Josh was mine, so well deserved. I sat on the task force in Harrisburg, and you know, many people there with many titles, and I think it was the first time actually where we actually had the legislators serious about writing statutes and laws to help EMTs and the EMS world. And one name that always came up on many occasions was Mr. Major. Whether you know it or not, sometimes you're a tough man because you believe strongly in the passion of EMS. And I just want you to know how many people throughout this state and other states know your name and really appreciate what you've done for them over the decades. And we here at Lycoming County, you know, think the world of you. Thanks.
You know, one of the amazing things about the EMS world is that so many in the family. You see John Major, son is a state trooper. You see Josh Dorman. My colleagues have said it all. We will simply make sure that every constituent understands and knows, especially the folks who don't know what goes on, but that we thank you on behalf of them, and we will continue to make sure that we support you.
I just thought of something I wanted to add. Our local Little League, I've been involved with them for 23 years now. I'm the president down in Torresville. We pick a theme every year, and out of those 23 years, one of my favorite opening days was to honor our EMS. And we invited our EMS to come down to the field, and we had the big American flag from the mall. We opened it up in the infield. I think, Hutch, you were there. And we had the different volunteers and the EMS were there to be celebrated by our youth and to show the youth how important EMS was. And I think that was one of my favorite days ever in Little League, and to see the kids and learning the respect for you folks. So I just thought of that, wanted to add that. So again, thank you so much for what you do. If you want to leave, you can leave. If you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. Stay well, everyone.
We have some very exciting stuff to discuss.
Yeah, true. True.
That is true.
She's got it.
Stephanie Tribble is here to receive the proclamation for Child Support Month, and I think Commissioner Maravito is going to read that.
Proclamation. Whereas Lycoming County recognizes the unique value and potential in each child, and whereas Child Support Awareness Month reminds us that children need the emotional and financial support of parents to reach their full potential, and whereas strengthening individuals and families promotes the safety and well-being of children, provides stability, improves the lives of children, and provides opportunities for families to be able to enhance their children's futures. And whereas Lycoming County applauds those parents who support their children and make child support payments consistently to provide security for their children. And whereas child support professionals are vital assets to the county, working in cooperation with parents and other partners to ensure families receive quality services. And whereas during Child Support Awareness Month, all residents are encouraged to look to the future of our county and our children, and to work together with child support professionals to make our children's futures stable and bright. Now therefore, the Board of Commissioners for the Lycoming County hereby proclaim in the month of August 2020 to be Child Support Awareness Month. In witness whereof, we've set our hand and seal this 27th day of August 2020. Signed, Scott L. Metzger, Chairman, Tony R. Messer, Vice Chairman, Richard Maravito, Secretary.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to thank you for recognizing August as Child Support Awareness Month, as well as the entire staff of the Domestic Relations Office. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Child support is often a thankless job. We do often hear it's just domestics or it's just child support. But let me try to clarify exactly what it really is. It's locating absent parents, it's establishing paternity, it's establishing medical and financial support orders, and most importantly, it's an enforcing of those orders. Lycoming County Domestic Relations collects and disperses approximately $12 million a year, and that's a lot of financial help to those most vulnerable, the children. And for every intake, every successful locate, appointment, hearing, phone call, or an enforcement action, there's a child behind that. Child support helps to reduce financial and medical insecurities. It helps reduce public welfare spending by preventing single families from either going on welfare or getting off of welfare quicker, thus lessening the load to the local taxpayer. And enforcement and collection of those support orders make a positive impact on the family relationship, and it increases the likelihood of an involvement of the absent parent in that child's life. So when we hear it's just domestics or it's just child support, we say it's a lot more than that. Child support does make a difference in the lives of children and their parents or guardians, most of which can't even be measured by a federal performance number or a dollar amount. So I also want to thank my staff for all of their hard work day in and day out. They not only endure emotionally charged clients every day, but they've really had to adapt during this, difficult pandemic situation, and they've really, have held our standard here in Lycoming County to be one of the top 5th class counties in the state. So I thank all of my staff for their adapting and pushing through to make sure that these orders are not only established but enforced.
Thank you. Thank you to your staff for what they do, because they do deal with emotionally charged individuals. And when it comes to people's children and people's finances, they're very, very dear to the heart. And a lot of times, I know from working next door, people get upset and the panic button gets pushed between family court and between domestics, and they're down there and trying to get the individuals to de-escalate and speak rational. So it's a tough job, it's a difficult job, but it's a needed job because it's for our kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
Could you recognize each one of them?
Absolutely.
And have them please stand?
Sure. Tina Zimmerman, Fiscal Data Supervisor. Sue Clayton, Officer. Ashley Manifold, Officer. Carla Bergen, she's our locate clerk. Joe Caluso, he's a customer service clerk. Forrest Duffy, he's an officer. Caitlin Vogel, intake clerk. Mackenzie Williamson, she's our new officer for work search. Vicki Belay, also an officer. Oh, I'm sorry. Sue Hutchins, customer service clerk. Dave Riddell, customer service clerk as well.
Okay, thank you.
We do want to thank you, and I think that doing the work recognizes that the way we solve problems is by especially starting at the youngest level, and we need resources. I think one of the saddest things, people think of domestics and they think of someone browbeating people to pay, and what I find so sad is that someone
doesn't recognize the value of their own self, right? Because there's some of that DNA in that child. They don't recognize the value of their own self in the child they created. And I almost, if people are out there and they come across this, I hope they would fast forward to the day when they pass from the planet, that they at least can say, I took care of the child I fathered or I mothered. That, I mean, if there's nothing else we can do to try to make a contribution, at least we can do the most important thing. So we thank you for what you do, because it is something that's vitally critical, and hopefully people will view it not as something that is punitive, but something that's a contribution when they make them. By the way, how do we stand relative to other fifth class? I know we're doing great in terms of collecting, but how do we stand in terms of people who don't pay? For example, in other fifth class counties, is there a higher percentage of people that would have to collect from, or?
I think we are number 2 on collection in the fifth class counties as of the current month that we were in. Every other category, we've maintained our first ranking amongst
Right.
fifth class counties. So.
But I mean, do you know how we rank, and I don't know if Jen knows, how do we rank in terms of the percent that don't pay? I don't mean that we don't collect, that don't, how many, in other words, in some counties, maybe you have to go after 30% of the people don't pay.
Typically, it's about 20% of our caseload that we have collection problems with.
20%?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you all.
So, yeah, and you have to have a difficult job. I guess my question to you would be, is it getting better or is it worse? Because I guess you're in the front lines, and do agencies or anybody above you listen to some of the things that you have to say that may improve, or, you know, training is very important.
Training is important, Commissioner, and the deputy and I, we track the National Child Support Enforcement as well, which is why we requested to be able to participate in that annual conference, which unfortunately didn't happen this year. We think we're, very proactive and having some out-of-the-box ideas in terms of trying to not only establish but enforce our orders. But I think, trying to be on the cutting edge to maintain that, or to continue to rise above where our status quo is right now, is really crucial.
And de-escalation skills are so vital in your job.
Absolutely,
They are.
absolutely. The mediation skills that
Yep.
all of my staff have is just amazing, because a lot of phone calls and a lot of walk-ins and appointments are really, emotionally charged and can get heated very quickly. So they have the skills to a lot of times de-escalate that, to be able to push through and get an order.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
In the informational items, we're going to move over to 3.1. This is discussion on funding to provide emergency relief for students, secondary learning sites. And I think, Shannon, are you going to?
I can start it off.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. As you know, we were discussing with a number of schools and Fire Tree and Camp Susquehanna yesterday, and a few of the churches about their concern with school students, especially those, I believe it's 7th grade and under, having a place to go on the days that they do not attend their actual school building. And they were discussing the idea of setting up alternative learning sites so that these children would have a place to go to that will be healthy for them, safe for them, and follow all of the social distancing guidelines while they continue to learn and have access to Wi-Fi, access to a healthy lunch. And so they asked if we could talk about this today, and I'll turn it over to the commissioners for their input.
Okay.
Let me
Go ahead.
Okay, let me hop in. So what we have is a real challenge in our community because we have certain school districts that cannot go back full-time. For example, the Williamsport Area School District. Physically, there is not the place with 5,000 students to put all students there and be able to engage in social distancing and do the things that need to be done. Several organizations have stepped up in the community, one of them being Camp Susk, the other one being Fire Tree, and they are working together to put together programs that allow parents whose children are taking part in hybrid learning or remote learning to have a place to go where there is supervision and where there is educational content being worked on. In the case of Fire Tree, they have a facility and they have about 49 kids signed up, and then they have a waiting list that takes them up to, I think, 70. In the case of Camp Susk has been working with various churches in the community which have space available to try to set up programs in these churches. So where does the county come in? Well, the county comes in because we disperse the $10.2 million that the federal government is sending to the state, and the state has now passed on to us to help with costs related to COVID and with changes that have had to be made in the community related to COVID. And we're going to talk a little later about the business and so forth. Yesterday, the three of us had a very good call with the folks from Camp Susk and Fire Tree, the Williamsport Area School District, and various church leaders in the community. And what we came up with today is a resolution showing our support. There was some question yesterday as to whether or not we would be able to say, yes, we can commit the funds. It's more complicated because we need to put together agreements. The purpose of today's resolution is to basically give confidence to those community leaders who are stepping up. For example, one church leader said, look, we're going to spend $50,000 in extra Wi-Fi that's needed, in heating and so forth. And those are all funds, those are all costs that are reimbursable through the COVID, but it has to be done properly. It can't be done to an entity that's not a 501c3 and so forth. So we have details that have to be worked out, and Shannon and Jenny have been working along with CEDACOG to try to work out the details. We have today, Mr. Chairman, a resolution that we would present for passage. I think you have it listed here. Did you want to do it now, Eileen, or did you want?
We can, if you
Okay.
wanted to take.
And it's resolution.
2020-23.
Yeah, 2020-23. And basically what it says is that we recognize as commissioners that as a result of this pandemic that there are alternative learning centers, that community organizations are trying to set them up, and that we now therefore be it resolved that the Lycoming County Commissioners support the efforts of these organizations that are setting up and opening these alternative learning centers to provide our Lycoming County student population with a safe and structured place to attend when they're not able to attend their regular school. So we need to get more details, we need to get contracts together, and we will do that at future meetings. But this, at least I see some folks here, and if they want to come and speak, I'm sure the chairman would be willing to invite them to come up and explain what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Any comments or discussion at this time? If you come up, please state your name for the record.
Thank you.
Greetings, my name is Jamie Sanders from Camp Susquehanna.
Could you pull your mask down?
I
Thank
would
you.
love to, thank you.
Thank you.
That is wonderful. Just to make the public aware, Camp Susquehanna is currently working, as you said, with many area churches and organizations to provide what we're calling Susquehanna learning sites. These will be open 5 days a week. Alternatively, we have 2 sites that will be serving each of the primary schools at this point. We are currently looking for sites for Jackson Primary, but we do have 2 sites for Cochran, 2 sites for the Stevens School, and we have 2 sites for Hepburn Lycoming. These sites will trade off Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedules with Tuesday, Thursday schedules. So students who are in Group A, meaning they're in school Monday, Wednesday, will attend one of these sites on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And there they will have air-conditioned space, safe social distancing, oversight by someone who's qualified to help them, and access to all the things that they need. There will also be a schedule of activities, so there's a sense of pattern of learning, setting up a positive learning environment, which will include things like getting together in the morning and connecting with the students, having our morning learning times, having recesses. We're planning on having the government officials and other people from the community come and share what it means to work in their line of work. We're looking to have police officers come in and other people who are members of the community to come and share with kids what they do and let the kids ask them questions for educational opportunities, as well as setting up our own reading programs and education and programming that will go on throughout the day. Our understanding is that the WASD will provide online learning that will take roughly 2 hours on average for students to, probably on the high end, to complete. So we're looking at adding additional programming to fill in the rest of the day. In addition to that programming, we are also going to be serving lunch at many of these sites. Our goal is to provide lunch at all of these sites with the understanding that many of these children are already on reduced and free lunch schedules at school. The school will continue to provide those lunches, but their best method of providing those lunches is to give that to those children on their last day of school, which would mean they're going to have to hold on to that lunch for a day and sometimes multiple days before they show up at a safe learning site. So we are also planning on providing additional food at many of these sites. Most of these sites are ready to launch. Actually, we're ready to launch for all 3 of those primary schools that I previously mentioned on Tuesday. And we are going to be open registration. We have limited spaces, but we're providing what we can, and we've estimated the need per primary school, the actual need to be somewhat manageable based on the number of kids that are communicating, and families that are communicating they have needs. So we're providing up to 50 spaces per elementary school, and we are looking to expand. In the process, even as I walk to this meeting of procuring sites for Jackson Primary, which I understand is our largest primary school in WASD, and we're concerned that we don't have a site available for them, but all of these things are in the works.
So, go ahead.
Jamie, the sites, how many sites how many kids would be at each site?
Different sites have different space requirements and abilities based on the size of their facility. So most of our sites are providing at least 25. I think currently every site is providing 25 spaces per day.
And explain the background of the individual and how many individuals will be supervising the kids.
So we are going to be following the WASD's recommendation for field trips, which is a 1-to-12 ratio. So that will be a minimum of people who are dedicated to the students in that facility. There will be, I know for instance, the facility that I'm closely connected with, the City Alliance Church, because I'm also on staff there, we are going to have more, and we will also have a support person. Each site is to provide a support person that is not necessarily part of the safe learning space or the learning site, but is supporting it. So if there is a need to step out, or if there's an extra need, there's a person at that site that is there to help. So in addition to the 1-to-12, we're going to have someone who's also overseeing and can be a safety valve of sorts. And our understanding and our provision for the students is that 1-to-12 is a minimum ratio. We're looking to provide higher ratios than that.
Okay.
We have experience with working with children that makes us understand that is a bare bones. We're looking to provide more.
Yeah.
So for the public, what they think about is this, that if your child is on a hybrid schedule, which is what the Williamsport Area School District is, and you're able to, there's a lot of anxiety among parents. What am I going to do? I got to go to work. Part of this is to get people back to work and to try to help parents say, okay, you know what, 2 days of the week and Friday, my child is going to be either home alone, which we don't think is a great idea from kids in kindergarten to 6th grade. 6th grade is actually at this point, right, the top end.
Yeah, 6th grade is the top end. We are actually opening registration for the primary schools, which would be K through 3rd. We're going to be looking to add spaces for students who are in intermediate schools. In particular, and almost immediately we can make available space for families who have primary students in need of the service, but also have intermediate school students, in other words, 4th through 6th graders who are siblings. It is much easier for us to make space for them immediately because they can share a school space. So we can sit them together because they're family members at a smaller table, and it will be less of a strain on the facility. So we're prepared to receive some of those students who are intermediate students who have a sibling in the program because it presents less of a strain on our sites. Until we open, we're not exactly sure what the response is going to be, given the model of Fire Tree and their waiting lists, and they were filled immediately, and our conversations with parents, of which I am one. There's a great need for it, so we anticipate it's going to fill quickly, and all of these sites are currently opening up with volunteers, and we're all looking at paying for this at this point individually. So we're not hopeful that we're going to be able to sustain these spaces without funding and assistance.
By the way, go ahead.
Do the volunteers go through the mandatory background checks with?
Yes, so that is part of the provision that we have, is that everyone has mandatory background checks. This is easy to provide in some senses with churches who already have these clearances for people who are working in their children's programs.
Okay.
And we need more volunteers, so that people are out there and they want to, if you're a retired teacher. So basically, envision a child will come with their Chromebook or their device that they've received from the school district. They'll get on the Wi-Fi. The teacher will still be teaching through the Wi-Fi, but there will be volunteers, and in the case of Fire Tree, they have a certified tutor who will basically be going around working with the kids, helping the kids. You know, you can't keep someone on a computer, a third grader, for 5 hours straight. You don't want them doing that. So at some point, they're going to have to get up. They're going to have to eat. They're going to have to do different things. But the point is that they're supervised, and it's really a county-wide effort, and it's a county-wide issue that we need to solve. So
yeah, and Camp Susquehanna is standardizing this process so that we can scale this countywide for other school districts that are in need. They're also in the hybrid schedule. So we are hopeful, if we are able to receive funding, to be able to say to every school district that's in a hybrid schedule in our county, here is a program that works, and here is a model, and it's funded. We can get this information right to you. You just need to provide the space and the people.
And on the off chance, which we hope will not happen, that everybody has to go remote, that we will start to have a structure in place that would be able to address that. So far we're in the moderate phase among the counties in the state, and hopefully that will not happen. But so
yes,
keep our fingers crossed.
And there will be a model and a structure in place. It will be overwhelmed if we go to that, but we have at least a bare bones, something that we could really build on.
Right.
We did a survey with the county employees, and because of them being parents, and it is I'd say number one, if not number two, on their scale of anxiety. What am I going to do with my kids when kids are in school only 2 days a week? Who's going to care for them? The grandparents, which we're trying to keep protected. They're the vulnerable population, and they go to school and then they come home, and we don't want the virus spreading that way. So it's definitely a great solution.
Camp Susquehanna has begun this initiative, and because of their relationship with so many churches and people and individuals and organizations in the county, have been able to quickly build a coalition in just the space of a couple weeks to step into this, because part of our mission is concern for families and children, and we're all feeling the strain and hoping to be able to provide a sense of relief and service to those families that will help them continue to go to work and pay their bills.
It's a great example when community comes together what they can do.
Yeah, it's been very encouraging.
Okay. The gentleman behind you, would you like to speak?
David Swift, Facilities Manager at Camp Susquehanna. If I could add a point, you were talking about the volunteers and volunteer qualifications, the mandated reporting.
Yeah.
A goal with obtaining the funding for this program is that the program would not have to rely on volunteers for the entire semester. That's just not a sustainable program. So Camp Susquehanna, we've been around 73 years. On a normal summer, we employ almost 100 college students. This summer, we had a few less, unfortunately. But a lot of our college students are doing remote learning as well. And a goal of ours would be, if we are able to provide a paid position for them, that we would be able to bring a lot of them in, even house them at Susquehanna, and then provide additional staffing for those the sites in town and at our own site. And those staff, we have a 2-week orientation for our counselors every summer. They've been through our program. Most of our counselors have come through as campers, graduating to staff, so we have a great relationship with them. And so we would really look forward to being able to bring some of them on to help support the churches or other remote sites, as well as our own site.
So it's a great experience for college kids that want to be teachers.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no question we need to look at the fact that we need some paid staff, because you can, it's one thing to have someone to stay with 25 kids for an hour and so forth when they're retired, but even it's just right. I mean, it's the right thing to do. We need to put the energy into our kids, and that money is reimbursable, so we just have to make sure we have trained people. Fire Tree has, as you've been working with them, they have the staff lined up, and part of it is that they had the model in place from doing the after school and the before school for parents who work. But this is really a good way all across the county to get people back to work and be able to have them feel comfortable. So
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioners, I felt like it'd also be important to mention the support of Williamsport Area School District of this program. They've been working with us all along, even to the point where they're going to be providing transportation to our Hepburn and Lycoming primary students who are at a distance that would require busing. So they're going to be doing some busing. And I just wanted to publicly mention Williamsport Area School District's support in help in putting this program together.
Okay, thank you.
It's amazing when I look back. I mean, Commissioner Maravito brought this up to us, 2 nights ago, and said, please join in the conference. We didn't even know he was working with anybody on this.
Well, we talked about, yeah.
Yeah, but
Friday you went to him.
Right.
Yeah.
We've been working for a couple, for a month.
So, but the survey that we sent out to our employees was pretty informative for us as leaders, and understand that that's just within our group of people. They were answered honestly, with a lot of sincerity, because they don't know. Some parents do not know what they're going to do, even if they're going to go back to work. If you look at it from a business perspective, okay, that's difficult on the employers as well, because there can be multiple school districts or multiple locations, and it's difficult to run a business when you have to provide so much flexibility with each and every individual in your organization. Very difficult. So I want to thank you for being part of this and bringing it to our attention. We did talk to our legislator yesterday afternoon. He said that he really believes that this is a bipartisan issue, that the deadline will be extended.
Tell them who? Which legislator?
Congressman Keller.
Yeah.
And hopefully that happens soon. And it would be nice that they made the money allocated to us. What was that? $10.2 million a little bit more flexible as well. Okay, it's difficult to try to jump through the hoops that the federal and state governments give you, you know, and sometimes it makes no sense, but we still have to live by the law. And I appreciate the time you spent yesterday on the conversation and for opening our eyes for the needs in our community. And I'm pretty confident we'll come up with a solution.
And your employment is your livelihood, but your family is your life. And if you're at work and you're worried about your family and you're anxious about your family, you can't be a good employee. You're not being fair to yourself and you're not being fair to your employer. So it's so important that we try to calm these fears and provide the resources, if possible, so that they can come to work with a clear mind and not have to worry about their family. So it's so important.
Move to approve Resolution 2020-23.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So carried.
Okay, so back to the informational items 3.2 with Shannon regarding small business grants.
Commissioners, as you know, we've been discussing the $10.2 million that the county's received to help alleviate some of the expenses that are occurring and have occurred with the COVID pandemic. Our first rollout will be for the small business grants. Those applications will be available on Monday, and the county has set up a website, and we will be holding informational sessions in the coming weeks. It's very important in the county that we support our small businesses because of the losses that they have seen, the extra expenses that they've seen, the requirements that they're working under, and we know that there is a definite need for this funding, and the commissioners have already allocated an initial $1 million of that funding towards the small business grant program. And if you want to go over some of the items that we're going to deal with?
Yes, so Lycoming County received $10.2 million in county relief block grant money from the Coronavirus Aid and Economic Securities Act, which is the CARES Act, through the State Department of Community and Economic Development. The funding is going to be used to support, or can be used to support, small businesses, nonprofits, and municipalities to offset the impact of COVID-19. Previous outreach through initial needs assessment inventory identified substantial need and impact in the county due to COVID-19. Regarding small businesses, there's a severe economic impact due to the pandemic and a need to use the CARES Act funds to help businesses and small businesses that have been especially impacted by the current crisis. The county will be allocating $1 million from the county's $10.2 million award to assist the small business community. Grant funds may be used to help businesses to recover from their financial hardships. The application window will be from next Monday, August 31st through September 18th for Lycoming County small businesses to apply and receive part of a grant the county will receive to assist them with COVID-19 expenses. The grants will be from $5,000 to $50,000. They'll be available for small businesses in the county that have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and related statewide business closures. These funds do not have to be repaid. Grants are available for businesses with annual sales and revenues prior to March 1st, 2020 of $3 million or less per year and have 100 or fewer full-time employees. Funds may be used for eligible costs from March 1st to December 30th, 2020, including operating costs, rent, mortgage interest, utility payments, eligible capital expenses, COVID-19 mitigation plans, food loss, outdoor dining equipment, and more. The invoice documentation is required. There'll be 3 information sessions. There'll be Zoom meeting sessions for the small businesses. The meeting times will be Wednesday, September 2nd. One will be held at 8 a.m., one at 1 p.m., and one at 6 p.m. The call information link and applications are available on www.lycomingcounty.org. COVID relief. That'll be our website. You can find that there. The county will be partnering with the Williamsport Lycoming County Chamber of Commerce on the small business program, along with CEDACOG. Regarding nonprofits, municipalities, school districts, and fire and EMS, the county is also preparing to help with the economic impact of the pandemic to these entities also. During the month of July, the county planning and community development staff collected needs assessment to determine the economic impacts to the 501c3s and the 501c19 nonprofits, municipalities, school districts, and fire EMS. In the upcoming weeks, the PCD staff will be preparing a grant program very similar to the small business grant program to help those organizations with their pandemic expenses. Please keep the following: that the county new COVID relief website, and listen for the commissioners to announce additional grant programs in the near future.
Commissioner, can we just clarify the website?
It is www.lyco.org/COVID relief.
Okay.
And we will be also putting a link on the county's main page to this new web page. And we will be sending out in a press release that later this afternoon based upon what we've talked about today. And that will also include the information regarding the website, the information regarding the Zoom meetings for the small businesses, and contact information for questions. The Chamber has graciously allowed us to use them as the collector for all of the small business grant applications, and they have also offered to answer questions because of the way that they have been handling the previous 2 small business grant loan program. So this will be a continuation of that process. They'll also be helping us with the committee to review the applications, make sure they meet the requirements, and to rank them for the grant process.
Okay, thank you. And we announced on Tuesday that $150,000 of the Act 13 monies went out with the help of the Chamber and the committee that was established that helped 92 businesses. We released that Tuesday, and now we're extremely excited to announce that we can take $1 million of the $10.2 million of the CARES money, of the COVID monies, to help our businesses and get those monies out to help small businesses, which are the backbone of our community.
And it's important to point out that we have a lot of small businesses in the county, and you don't have to be a member of the chamber to apply. This is for those small businesses that meet the requirements of being in business before March 1st, meeting the at least 100 full-time employees or less, and also having less than $3 million in revenues. So anybody who meets those requirements in the county can apply. The other requirements that you must meet will be in the application and the instructions, which will be on the website. And as Commissioner Sari and the other commissioners have mentioned, there are a lot of strings to this money, but the application process is not too difficult when compared with some other items, and we are here to help. So CEDACOG will be able to answer questions, Jason and those at the chamber will be answering questions. So we do require invoices, we do require expense information, we require a number of items, but we have to require these in order to have the expenses allowed by the DCD at the state, who is managing the funds that the federal government has sent down.
So this is another example of what Commissioner Massare mentioned about the deadline. So the money that we talked about for the school districts is the same money that we're talking about here. And the big problem, and so constituents should call their elected officials, because Congressman Keller is certainly working to try to change this, but Senator Toomey, Senator Casey, and the state, we can't have it locked into the December 30th deadline. And that's the deadline that you were talking about, especially for our small businesses, because they may start to get on their feet but still need some help in January and February.
And if those monies aren't spent by that December 30th deadline, then we have to return them to the state.
That's the current rule, right.
We
And
will
if-
not be returning them.
No.
Right, we're going to find a way to spend every dime in the
And we
county.
actually have to have a plan in place by the first week in November to spend those funds, because if we do not have that plan in place, which we anticipate, spending funds starting in September, but if we do not have that plan in place by the first week in November, they will take our funds and give them to somebody else.
Well, honestly, I think that we should have it before. I
Well,
mean,
we are
because,
doing
well, for
that.
example, the school districts and the organizations that came needed,
Yeah.
the businesses, as soon as we can process the applications. Well, I know.
And we're using the small business process as our first step. The next process will be the nonprofits, municipalities, the school districts, the fire and EMS. And so we are rolling those applications out probably weekly over the next month.
Okay, thank you. Jason, would you like to say anything?
I just want to thank you all for the commitment. Oh, here.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you all for the commitment to small businesses here in the community. You all have been very supportive of the efforts to be able to make this relief to all businesses that are being impacted. And unfortunately, we are still experiencing that impact. It's not like we're starting to see some sense of recovery for a number of small businesses. I can think of a couple of businesses who have temporarily shut down just to be able to stop the bleed on their business operations, to be able to try to make it through. Hopefully, this will be another aid that will assist them in being able to make it through, because the key is we've got to get them past this period, because they've been very viable. That's the frustrating aspect of all of this, is these were viable businesses that were conducting what we wanted them to be doing, and being able to be productive in our communities, supportive of nonprofit efforts, for example, and being very generous that way. Unfortunately, they're the ones who are in need, and the problem that we found is that they're not willing to speak up. And I will tell you, there are a number of small businesses that we are pushing, and I've encouraged our team, and I know the county does that as well. I don't care if you're a member of the chamber or not at this point. We just need you to survive. And so from that aspect of it, apply. We're not going to be able to help everybody. Unfortunately, $1 million sounds like a lot, but there's a lot of small businesses out there that are struggling. The key is though, we need to make sure that they apply. And I greatly appreciate the county pushing this out through their website. We will be linking to the website, and we're going to encourage others to do the same thing. We're going to push it out through our social media network. We want everybody to apply. We want, make the committee work. They're great volunteers. Make them make the tough decisions, but we want to be able to help as many people as possible. And I really thank all three of you for this commitment.
And I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but there's a lot of people have pride, and they think, well, I don't want to come and ask for a grant. The pandemic is not anybody's fault. It's a virus, it exists, and revenues for these businesses, and then on top of it, we have the double whammy of not having the World Series here. So, that many of these businesses relied on that, made their money. So there's nothing wrong with coming and asking for help during this time, and people should recognize that. I think that's what you're telling us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, even with the World Series, a lot of the nonprofits would work over there and raise monies that way. So it affects the nonprofits too by not having a series here.
And by the way, I know everyone is struggling, but the nonprofits are not going to be able to recoup lost revenue under the federal regulations. So a business can recoup some lost revenue, but right, we went through that yesterday?
No.
Am I incorrect on that?
No, we're, all items have to be invoiced. So a business it's not lost revenue that we're reimbursing.
Right.
It is, okay, you had to buy additional tables and chairs so you could have outdoor dining, so that, because you can't have more than 25% of your
Right.
person. It's any expenses related specifically to COVID. So like, you were closed for 3 months, but you still had to pay your mortgage. So the interest on your mortgage would be eligible.
Okay.
You had to buy masks. You had to buy additional gloves. You had to buy sanitizer. You had to buy specific sanitizer to sanitize the tables. You things that you have an invoice for, and you had to buy fans because of summertime, so that you had to have fans outside to help with the seating outside. Any things like that that are specifically COVID related, they have to be COVID related. Your electricity, while you were closed down, you weren't making any money, but you still had to pay for your electricity. So things like that.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
I was a business owner, and my employees were having a very difficult time getting to work because of what's going. My employees had a very difficult time getting to work because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Could a business help pay for some child care and get reimbursed for that?
I do not believe so.
I don't believe that would be the case now,
No.
because you're required to still figure out childcare regardless of COVID hitting.
Yeah,
Okay.
Unfortunately, with the strings that are attached to this funding, we have to make sure it meets.
Employee, not the employer.
Yeah.
So the reason I raise it also is because you can see the difficulty. A lot of the small businesses in our community, 5,000 or so, many of them rely on what they make to sustain their family households.
Mm-hmm.
So there are going to be other needs there because, okay, they can get reimbursed for the electric and everything like that, but they still have to be able to feed their own families. They still have to be able to pay their own bills at home.
Right.
And so the Paycheck Protection Program took care of a little of that, but that was done. There's still going to be a lot of need out there.
And that's the problem, because I believe with if you took the PPP.
That is the other issue with this.
And
you have to make sure that you don't double dip.
Right.
So if you got PPE or PPP funds, you will have to note that on there. If you did get a small grant from the chamber and the previous things to help with maybe 1 month's mortgage, you will have to show that. But if you were shut down for 3 months, we can help with the other 2 months mortgage interest.
Okay.
We can help with, if you were shut down, you still have to make your insurance payment that month. So there is a lot of expenses out there that maybe you got a little bit of help before, and we do need to know what that is, because we cannot double dip. That's a federal requirement. However, the money that has been sent out has been, for the most part, fairly minimal for these small businesses. And in many cases, some of them weren't allowed to even get those funds. So we just have to make sure that what you're asking us for has not been funded by a different grant, and that you have an invoice or some kind of bill to show that you've paid it and you had that expense, and no matter what it is, as long as it was COVID related.
Here's another question. Because the bill was wrote so vaguely initially,
Mm-hmm.
and even with DCD, yesterday's conversation, who is interpreting it? I mean, are we?
Well,
I mean,
in the case of what Commissioner Rubio was talking about with the loss of revenue for nonprofits and fire and EMS and things like that, there is question about whether or not we can actually reimburse for lost expenses for a nonprofit, meaning 501c3 or 501c19 is the other designation, I believe, which many fire and EMS are, and many and nonprofits usually are. We are not 100% sure on that one. So we are asking for what the lost revenue is, but we are also asking for specific expenses related, because we don't know quite yet. We think there may be a possibility in the future, But as we've heard from the school districts and the special learning sites and from the small businesses, even though $10.2 million seems like a lot, it's not gonna cover all the expenses. So we're asking for that information in case maybe come November 1st, we've determined we can do some loss of revenue reimbursement for nonprofits, that maybe we have applications ready to go and maybe we can do that. If we can't, we need to make sure we have other things in line. I know for the county, Jenny has been working with department heads to gather expenses that the county's had. We had all of our staff working from home basically. You know, additional internet service, additional broadband, bandwidth, things like that. You know, all of our maintenance staff were building shields and plexiglass things and going around cleaning door handles and stuff rather than doing what they were hired to do.
You know, we sometimes complain about the strings that are attached, but when you read the article in the paper yesterday about the unemployment compensation and that 10,000 inmates filed,
I'm just glad
there was over $250 million that was handed out illegally. You know, that's why there are strings attached.
And that's why, I mean, there are strings, but somebody is watching these funds. That's why they caught that. And when we have to fill out a monthly report starting September 1st to say how we spent it, and we have to provide the documentation, which is why when we were discussing with the learning centers yesterday, we have to be very careful on how we disperse those funds. We have to have the documentation. You know, that's why we're asking for your paper showing that you're a 501c3 or you're a C19 or that you have invoiced us properly or you have the actual paperwork to show what you need these funds for. Because they're going to be auditing us. There is no if, there will be auditing us, and we have to provide that documentation.
And that went through DCD, correct?
The federal funds came down to the state, and then the state dispersed it, and DCD is the one that is managing the county's disbursements. And they're the ones that are basically the watchdog for the federal government.
Thanks for the work you're doing, Sharon.
No problem, thank you.
And Jenny.
Yep. And Jason.
And Jason.
Thank you. You want to go back to?
Director McDermott said that we can hold off on 2.3 till Tuesday.
Okay, that's fine.
Tuesday.
Okay, great,
Okay.
thank you.
Jason, did you have anything else? Because I didn't put you on today. Jason Fink.
The KOZ.
Yes.
That, you're part of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm part of that.
All right.
We're
So, we'll go to the action items 4.1, Maya Toon, for the emergent contract. And she, right before the meeting, she has the updated if you wanted to look at it. The one you guys have
I did.
is the other date.
Yeah.
So
Can
this
you
is,
get change?
this is the only one I
It's
have.
to-
Oh, change it to
to
September
recognize
1st.
September 1st as
September
September
1st, do you need it? Okay.
Yep. Okay, good, Maya.
So this is just an agreement that we talked about on Tuesday. It's to program, manage, and operate Channel 75, which would be with Emergent for, I never know if I'm allowed to touch it, that's the problem. So that takes effect, like I said, September 1st, and that would be ongoing until terminated by either party. And some of these costs, we are gonna try from an equipment hardware standpoint, try to recoup as part of COVID as well. As a team, we are sitting on that daily to look at all those expenses.
Yeah, that was researched, and a good part of it could be recouped through the COVID. Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to, recoup the expenses beyond December 30th for those costs. That's something that we would have to, budget for annually as part of our budget, but the majority of the upfront costs we should be able to recoup, hopefully.
Yeah, so the goal here is to be able to utilize a resource that's in the community, Channel 75, which actually came, and correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, came partly as a result of the license fees from the Comcast, or from the cable agreement, right? From the cable service agreement. Under federal law, the license gives the community money, and Channel 75 was set up many years ago to utilize the those fees to be able to communicate. It's a government educational community channel, PEG they call it, Public Educational Government Channel, under the federal law. So we want to take that here and use it for live streaming our meetings, right? Using it for the closed caption.
Director,
Right.
want to elaborate on the uses of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Think of Channel 75 as just the vehicle to expand our outreach capabilities across multiple platforms, social media platforms, and news outlets, to be able to provide the information that we've been not able to provide effectively.
Right, and doing this, we will also be able to open it up to other municipalities if they wanted to. So, yeah.
Meets the needs of the disabled.
Right, it meets the needs, Commissioner Macera is saying, of the disability community in terms of being able to. And what it does also, if I understand Mr. Kennedy, it doesn't require you to be sitting here?
I don't know if that's going to be a true statement.
Okay, well, we'll take that statement back and
We're
we'll
hoping.
work out the details. We're hoping that it's going to be efficient, so.
Todd, you want to elaborate?
Yes, Commissioners, thank you once again for the opportunity to serve. It's just what you guys have said, and it's a great ability to communicate. Just one more tool in the toolbox to be able to push information in real time to the community in the midst of a pandemic. And as we've talked about, it seems to ever change every single day. So it's an opportunity to push in real time to TV, online, social media, and get it out to the public. So again, just thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Okay, other questions? Further discussion? I have a motion to accept the agreement of Emergent Broadcasting Company.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So carried. Thank you.
4.2, Director McDermott, the KOZ extension at Timber Run Industrial Park.
Commissioners, on Tuesday, I said that we'd be asking for your approval on Resolution 2020-24. This resolution extends the terms of exemptions, deductions, abatements, and credits for real property, earned income tax, net profits, mercantile, and business privilege taxes within a specific geographic area within the county, designated as Keystone Opportunity Expansion Zone or Keystone Opportunity Improvement Zone, KOEZ or KOIZ, in order to foster economic opportunities, stimulate industrial, commercial, and residential improvements, and prevent physical and infrastructure deterioration within the areas of Grady Township, Lycoming County, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. These are all going to be upon certain terms and conditions as levied by DCED once they approve of our request to do so. You're familiar with what the map shows and what we're trying to accomplish. We're simply extending what was there. We removed some of the acreage that wasn't supposed to be included in this, so now everything is the way it's supposed to be. And this will go forward. We expect the applications to make it through or be reviewed by DCED mid-November.
So we literally looked, and when that was first set up as a KOZ, some time ago, right? Did they delineate every area of that, or was it the entire acreage that we own? This is what I don't quite understand.
Here's what.
Because I thought the entire farm was KOZ.
And this actually predates me as well with regards to what was done. This is, I guess to go back, this is being referred to as extension of KOEZ. So there was, for whatever reason, a portion of the property that was put into a KOZ. And I believe that was the 50 acres of segments of 2 parcels. And then there was, for whatever reason, a decision to take and put the remaining when they opened up the KOZ program again, which was the KOEZ, what they referred to. And so that's where they put the bulk of it in. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure why they managed it that way and why the state allowed this to be done that way, because they're not permitting that any longer. And that's where we're in the situation where we have to subdivide off what was KOZ at one time. We have to subdivide that off because they're not allowing portions of parcels to be entered into the program anymore. They have to be entire parcels, and to be able to allow this, they will only permit it because they're not, as the state has said, since that roughly 50 acres is not considered KOEZ, it needs to be subdivided and needs to be treated separately. Again, I don't know why it was done that way and why they permitted it to begin with, but they did, and now I believe they're cleaning up some of their issues.
Okay.
So this is one of those, those state programs that sometimes you may not agree with all parts of it, but if you are trying to attract economic development and we don't have at least a level playing field with what other counties have, we put ourselves at a disadvantage. If they have land that's KOEZ or KOIZ and we don't have it, and that's the reason for us seeking.
And there's my argument. Sometimes you get frustrated, like the political pressures putting on Congress right now with the airports. Okay. Once government gets involved, it seems to mess up the capitalism, the free enterprise. Okay, because then who gets hurt by development of KOZs? The taxpayers. Okay, and we have arguments on both sides, but you look at the airline tickets and you sit there and say, well, how can you afford to fly me down to, Florida for $80? They can't. They're getting government money. Whereas if the government stayed out of it, that ticket would be the true cost, and competition would drive. Not to mention some of our areas, instead of giving free tax breaks all the time, we would probably compete better in the market because of where we live, and the standard of living. But it is what it is, and sometimes it's very difficult to swallow.
Well, and I don't know, Jason, if you can help out on this, but I am thinking that the legislature changed this partly to coincide with the federal opportunity zone.
No, no, I don't think that's the case.
That postdated it?
Yeah, because the KOEZ, the KOZ program, they were cleaning this up the last round.
Okay.
They actually, that 50 acres, they had not renewed that, but they did not give us any direction at that time as to how they were going to handle it. So that's why we're dealing with this at this point.
Okay.
So. And commissioners, I completely agree. I'm not a fan of KOZ programming. Unfortunately, though, it is one of those things where if we don't have it and somebody else does, you know what, we're not going to get the look. And that's what you need, first of all, is to get the look to be able to sell yourselves.
Yeah. Okay. I have a motion to accept the KOZ extension in Timber Run Industrial Park.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So carried. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Matt.
Nikki Gottschall's here for 4.3 payment of 2020 ADEC discussion.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nikki.
I'm not sure what was talked about on Tuesday. I was with my family. We were in Knoebels, so we took the day off. So you. Not sure what the discussion was on Tuesday.
Maybe we should do this Tuesday.
This is for the 2020 ADEC.
Yeah.
That there's been no payments yet.
Why don't we table this till Tuesday and have Krista here?
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
I'm
Okay,
fine.
all right, we're gonna table till Tuesday and have Krista here.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner comments?
So I wanna address a couple things that are going on nationally and how it's starting to impact us locally. In Portland, at 2:30 in the morning, you had the mob mentality driving down streets, putting spotlights on people's homes and harassing them to come out of their homes. Sunday in Philadelphia, a woman who's doing a reading at a cathedral gets done with her reading and walks back to her seat and is punched in the face by another woman. Two days ago in Washington, D.C., people that are innocently eating their lunch in 3 diners and restaurants are harassed by groups of people, screaming at them, telling them to raise their fist in unity, and if they don't, they can continually harassed and screamed at even more violently. And if you don't think this can happen, if you noticed on Channel 16 last night, and I'm sure it's already around, a 76-year-old man who's doing his job working for a social agency, and one of his duties is to lock up the basketball courts locally every night at 8 o'clock. And he's been harassed before the other night when he was finally assaulted. And they have this on social media, watching him get assaulted while they laugh at him, make fun of him, and knock him to the ground. It's happening now, and it's happening in our county. And it's going to stop. Because I, as a commissioner, I'm sure my colleagues will agree, we will provide the police and the DA the resources to keep these thugs, these degenerates, from doing this in our community. This is absolutely disgusting. I watched the video. Thank God that man's fine. He's quite sore, but he's going to be okay. And we pray that these punks are arrested in the immediate future and held accountable. As a result, the basketball courts are now locked. So, due to the generosity of Elise Johnson, who plays in the NBA, who donated his own money to provide this in our community for those kids, these idiots who assaulted this man are the result of those courts now being locked. And I would pray and hope that the public come forward and identify these individuals so these kids can then again play on those courts. We will have zero time and zero tolerance for anyone that comes in our community and displays this behavior. To assault a 76-year-old man who's locking up basketball courts doing his job is disgusting. Commissioners?
Couldn't agree with you more. They're the real deplorables.
So, For full disclosure, I'm on the board of Fire Tree Place. Fire Tree Place owns the basketball courts and the land where that occurred. And I'm not sure whether this was a, well, I don't know about the other incidents you described, some of which sounded like they were political statements. I don't know if this was a political statement or this was just juvenile delinquency. But
these are adults in the video.
yeah, well, then adult delinquency. I mean, it's absolutely, reprehensible that people think that they can just go around and physically take action against people like that. Do it. I know the gentleman who was assaulted. I've known him for 25 years, and
he's a fine man.
He's a fine man, and he never would have done or said, well, first of all, you don't want to blame the victim, but he never would have done or said anything that would have provoked it. He was probably doing his job, which was locking up the court. So, hopefully that they will find out who did this. And the really sad part about this is that, oh, by the way, the Fire Tree folks couldn't make it today because they had a doctor's appointment, that Billy Dayton, who you saw yesterday, and he did text and say, please thank the commissioners for their support. But the whole message that Fire Tree is about, and that they talked about yesterday, are the soft skills. And part of the soft skills are, like the Williamsport Area School District, the 4 Bs. Be respectful, be responsible, and so forth. And so to have an adult do this on the property where kids are trying to be taught and where we're all trying to raise kids to behave in a different manner is really just sort of the just a terrible thing. So
P.D. Mitchell, who's
right,
a cornerstone of our community,
right,
who started,
he'd be rolling in his grave.
He'd be absolutely appalled, because that would have never happened back in his day.
And this was the only thing I was trying to get across. This is not a political statement. You don't make a political statement by hitting someone in the head with a basketball. You don't make a political statement by physically assaulting people. That's not a political statement. That's
It's disregard for life.
Yeah, it's disregard for people. Yeah, and it's
going
and
on,
it's
and now
selfish,
it's
and
coming locally.
Well, and that's the only thing I might question with you, commissioners, whether or not it's. I think these things have happened before, in all communities, but not the things I don't know what you described, but this kind of activity we've seen before, and it didn't. I don't know that it has a political. It has a. People think that they can do this, and they need to be held accountable. Especially, what they really need to do is to come forth and apologize publicly to all the people involved, to the person they hit, to the kids who are trying to learn different ways, and to the community. And I would expect
this stuff would stop.
What's that?
Caning them this stuff would stop.
Okay, well, I don't know if we can do that, but anyway.
Well, I know you can't, but boy,
yeah.
I'll tell you what, when you see something like that, it's ridiculous.
Well, the most important thing we can do is to keep supporting organizations that are trying to teach all of us how to behave more civilly.
Any public comment at this time? Hearing none, we're adjourned until Tuesday, September 1st.